Good morning in the West, good afternoon in the East, and good evening to those we see joining from Europe and Africa. Welcome to a forum on artificial intelligence, what universities should consider, a topic of wide interest. This forum is being recorded and is on the record. Video will be available later on the USC website. This is part of a series of forums we are presenting on artificial intelligence and disruption. Next month's program on Tuesday, May 13th at the same time will be on coexisting with AI and AI enablement. If you want to be on our invitation list for these events, you can email me, acpowell@usc.edu. Again, acpowell@usc.edu. Today, we are pleased to welcome Geoff Garrett, Dean of the USC Marshall School of Business and the leader of a campus-wide look at USC at artificial intelligence and the university. Geoff will describe his work and then take your questions. You all should have his bio already, but we're also going to put it into chat. So Geoff, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Adam, very much. Great to see lots of Zoom tiles, including some old friends. Jeff Cole is on the Zoom. Dick Drobnik, I see there. And I gather this is a group of sort of partly USC folks and partly non-USC. So I'll try not to be too Trojan-centric, but certainly much of my thinking about what AI means for higher ed and how we should respond is a function of the strategy committee on AI that I've been leading for President Byung-Soo Kim since October last year, which seems an eternity ago, of course, in AI land 6 months ago, whereas in university time, that's a nanosecond, and that's a tension that I'm very acutely sensitive to. So I've got a stripped down slide deck that I wanted to share with people, and I'll tie myself to the mast here by saying that I'll try to speak only for about 20 minutes because I found in all things AI, the conversation is much more valuable than any set piece that I might do in advance. So, but I will do share screen. I'll try to walk through. I think I stripped this down to not much more than 10 slides. So let me see if I can get through it all and then motivate a conversation for us. First question will always be, do you see my screen in slideshow presentation? There should be a somewhat elegant, not so directly USC branded slide that says AI at USC. Everyone see it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So this is the brand that we've been using for the AI at USC initiative. But what I want to do today is not talk about the process or specifically about things at USC, but more broadly about what's the AI imperative for higher education and how should we respond. So I've really divided this into two components. The first component is meeting the moment. And the moment, I was just making an observation about university time versus real time. Universities typically, as we all know, operate on a much slower cadence than the real world. But in the case of AI, the disconnect between university operating time and the real world is profound. And I do worry that the longer we talk and think about how to introduce, how to respond to AI for higher education, the further behind we'll get. It's a you snooze, you lose environment. So I'm feeling the pressure certainly to get some things done. And I'll let you know of a conversation I had over the weekend. There are some things with respect to undergraduate education at USC that are now theoretically actionable for us at USC. So I was talking with somebody in the provost's office over the weekend about, hey, can we do this for fall 2026? That is 4 months from now. And of course, the immediate response was, no, you can't. It's going to have to be 16 months from now. September 2027 could be the earliest that we'd introduce anything. And my response to that was, I have no idea what the AI world is going to look like in fall 2027. I need to act and we need to act today. So let's see, you'll see in real time how this conversation plays out. But if I go back to the what is meeting the moment, what does meeting the moment mean? I've got 4 pieces of stimulus material. I'll talk about each of them for a little bit, and then I'll move to the response. So really only 2 parts. First piece of stimulus material, and they're all going to be questions. The demise of entry-level jobs. And what I've got here is a quotation from the CEO of McKinsey in a Wall Street Journal interview, which in AI time is an eternity ago, August the 2nd, 2025, when the CEOs, the title of this article was Existential. And the notion was that AI was an existential threat to consulting. And my response as a business school dean is, if AI is existential for consulting, it's existential for business schools because of the amount of placements into consulting firms that we do in business schools. So the quotation made the obvious point, what today looks like an obvious point, which was a lot of what management consultants do is harnessing information, synthesizing it, and putting it in PowerPoints that look really, really cool. Today, there are 15 firms that will allow you to do that with a press of a button. So the AI challenge here, question mark, is if entry-level jobs are going away, and entry-level, of course, is in quotation marks here. If entry-level jobs are going away and we've been in the business of launching people's careers, what do we do? How can we elevate them above entry-level jobs? So that's challenge 1. Challenge 2 is, does AI make your brain lazy? And increasingly, the evidence is saying, yes, it does. What does that mean? Well, again, back in the ancient history of June 2025, the famous MIT Media Lab, a whole bunch of people co-authored a study that created a real splash. The study was called Your Brain on Chat GPT. And I'll tell you what the study did and found at the simplest level. A group of students are asked to do exactly the same project. Some of the students use AI tools, some of the students don't use AI tools. There were 2 findings from that study. Finding 1, the students who used the AI tools did better work faster. Finding 2, they didn't understand their work nearly as well. So the challenge here is, can we do both and? Can we help students use AI tools, which will allow them to do faster, better work, but also can we ensure that we do that in a learning environment where people really understand the work and not in a world in which we're just making people's minds lazier? So that's the second challenge question. Does AI make your brain lazy? And if it does, what do we do about that? Third challenge, we've only just begun where AI automation is concerned. The pretty piece of art on the right-hand side is from the AI company Anthropic, and this is now a little more contemporary history. This is from 6 weeks ago, the middle of February 2026. Anthropic posted an analysis of the automation of jobs. And in this, you'll see, I hope Everett, the words are visible here. This is a whole bunch of skills that are required in the world of work. Some of them are more, according to Anthropic, this is the blue area. Some of them are more AI-able than other areas. The areas that are not AI-able are things like plumbing and electricians and construction and home healthcare work and food services. The stuff, according to Anthropic, that is more AI-able, more automatable, is the core of the university, at least from where I sit. Management, business, finance, computing, architecture, engineering, life sciences, legal, arts, media are all at the 0.8 to 0.9. That is 90% of jobs in those sectors, according to Anthropic, are potentially AI-able. The little red sliver here in this piece of art is what has been AI'd already, at least according to Anthropic through the use of their Claude AI tool. And this study was coincided with the release of the latest version of Claude. I think it's 4.6, that created shockwaves throughout the economy, including the SaaS, the software as a service sector, where share prices declined by 25% in a couple of days because of the threat of automatable AI work in professional services. So the question here is, based on this graph, is a really big one about the future of work. Are we going to automate 80–90% of white-collar jobs? And if so, is that going to be augmenting those jobs or replacing those jobs? That's the big question, right? Augment or replace. So have we only just begun in AI automation? And for those of you who've been following closely, you know that at least up until now, there is not much evidence of AI disruption in the labor market. The question is whether that's backward looking and out of date, and whether there's some AI work disruption tsunami around the corner. Anthropic obviously is talking their own book here, and they have an interest in saying that a lot of stuff is AIable. Why? Because they want to IPO, and the question is, are they going to IPO at $500 billion or $1 trillion? So part of it would depend on uptake. Let me tell a brief story about this slide. So the punchline is going to be that, at least according to the chairman of Alibaba, Joe Tsai, the total addressable market, the TAM, for AI work is larger than the rest of the white-collar world of work combined. And this is of a global economy of $110 trillion. Joe says that 50 trillion of that is tied to white-collar knowledge workers, and all of them are potentially AIable. Now, the important story here, though, is the word agentic, and the fact that it's 2026. So if we cast our minds back for ourselves, and I'll be an AI user here. The way I use AI is like a research assistant, but it's a research assistant that's on call for me 24/7 and does work instantaneously. But what that means is I know a topic I want to do some research on. I interact with multiple AI tools to do a bunch of research, and then I take a look at it. I think about what I like, what I don't like. Do I want to redirect? But I own the product. And at the end of the day, maybe I'm going to ask the AI to create a PowerPoint for me, but it's a PowerPoint based on, or a presentation based on, a bunch of decisions I made. So I'm going to call that the AI as assistant world. And I'm going to say that AI as assistant, that's so 2025, because now in 2026, we have something much bigger and in many ways more intimidating, which is the world of AI as an agent, not an assistant. And what's an AI agent? An AI agent is a piece of software that is tasked not only with doing research for me, but doing the work and completing it for me. So while if I charge my agent or my agents well, they're going to be doing the work while I'm sleeping, and the work is going to be completed by the time I wake up. That's different from an assistant world. This is the agentic AI revolution, and this is what Anthropic and other companies are proposing right now, that the skill that everyone entering the workforce is going to need is management. But it's not going to be management of people. It's going to be management of machines, of AI agents. So meeting the moment, we've got demise of entry-level jobs, question mark. We've got, does AI make your brain lazy, question mark. We've got, How much of white collar employment is AI-able? Question mark. And number four, is agentic AI in 2026, is that really the game changer? As I often joke, there's nothing more vertical than vertical, but it feels that we're almost in a vertical moment now with respect to AI. So that's the challenge. How should we respond to that? I want to just sketch three potential kinds of response, and this is very much focused on undergraduate education. I think professional schools at the graduate level will have their own focal points. But I've been thinking about this in terms of AI education for all USC undergraduates, but for all undergraduate students everywhere. And the potential responses that I want to outline here very briefly come in three buckets. Bucket one is increasing fluency with tools. Bucket two is all about human skills and things that AI can't do and won't do. And bucket three is about the importance of experiential learning, where if the real world is moving so quickly and higher education is typically behind, the only way we can keep up is to reduce the distance between the world of practice and the university, and we need to do that through experiential learning. So let me talk briefly about this. So I only want to go with the headline here. If I was to characterize the conversations I've had with lots and lots and lots of stakeholders at USC in the past 6 months, a lot of people view AI in either or language. Either we're all in on AI or we live in an AI free zone, and a whole bunch of your attitudes map from that. My very strong instinct is that's the wrong way to think. Instead of an either or world, let's live in a both and world. And let me just motivate that with one topic that is clearly gaining enormous resonance, not only on university campuses, but in the world of politics. And potentially, I think this could be a very big election issue at the local level and at the national level in the United States in 2026, and presumably 2028 as well, and potentially all around the world. And the example I want to give is of AI and sustainability. We know that AI tools, AI data centers, are insatiable users of energy and water. And lots of people today are saying, the planet cannot afford that, so let's switch off AI to preserve the environment. Again, for me, it's not either or, it's both and. I don't believe we will switch off AI because of environmental concerns, but that's not to say that there aren't massive trade-offs that we should be thinking about. One of my pet topics, for example, to go very broad, is Chinese solar panels. Chinese solar panels today are cheap and really, really good, and they're powering the power grid not only in China, but many parts of the world. They're not doing that in the United States because we don't want Chinese solar panels in the US for national security reasons. We should have a conversation about that, in my view. If we want US AI leadership, maybe one of the costs of that would be to be more accepting of solar panels and wind turbines from other parts of the world, led by China. So both and challenge, not either or. And in terms of higher education, the way to think about this, at least for me, is we've got to prepare students for the AI world, but we also need to protect the learning environment and to ensure that all of our students are very responsible users of AI. So how might we do that? On the AI fluency here, I've got two sides of the slide. Slide one, left-hand side, is just called AI for ... What does that mean? What that means is that disciplines and domain expertise are going to continue to matter in an AI world. And that the way we should think about this is not having a bunch of computer scientists coming to lawyers to say, this is what AI is, and this is how you should use it. Rather, we should go in the opposite direction and ask lawyers to think hard about what can and what cannot AI do for the legal profession or for accounting. I used here the example of AI for physics. The Dean of Arts and Sciences at USC, James Bullock, came from UC Irvine. And I was having a conversation with him a few months ago, and he told me that the last thing he did as Dean of UC Irvine was to create a degree called AI for Physics. And I just thought this was great because the physicists were really worried that they were just going to be told what to do by a bunch of computer scientists. And they said, but the computer scientists don't understand physics. The way the degree ultimately worked out was that the physicists learned what the tools could do and used them for their purposes. So imagine a university in which every discipline has its own AI for. In the business school, we already have an undergraduate degree called AI for Business. But we know that AI for marketing is different from AI for finance. Well, what about AI for filmmaking versus AI for other creators? These are all different things. So imagine a university in which every discipline is asked, what is AI going to mean for your discipline or your domain, and how are you going to empower students for that age? That's the AI for. On the right-hand side is how algorithms think, which was a cute title that one of our committee members gave to a kind of what is AI class, an AI boot camp that we think all students should undertake. The key point here is that you've got to have different levels of a how do algorithms think class. It can't be one size fits all. So, of course, the way a computer scientist is going to think about an AI model is going to be very, very different from the way somebody who's studying history thinks about AI models. One would have lots of statistics, lots of notation, lots of quant in it. That's fine and good for them, but it's not so good for the historians or the English majors. So what we should have for them is the same idea, the concepts of what is a large language model, what is a predictive algorithm, how do these things work? Are they backward looking? Are they forward looking? We need everyone to understand that. And if we're going to have a class like how algorithms think, it's got to have different levels of technical entry barriers. Sure, we need something for computer scientists, but we need the same class for the humanists, same concepts, just taught differently. So that's AI fluency. Next page, human skills. I have a very simple, trite, but way to describe this, but it feels real to me. And the way I think about this is in an AI age, machines are going to do lots of things that humans used to do. What that means for humans is we have the opportunity and the responsibility to be better humans. So what might that look like? Two buckets here. Left-hand side, responsible AI. And as a sort of wide-ranging social scientist, at least before I became a full-time administrator, this kind of class really excites me. So we're calling it responsible AI. What would you do in a responsible AI class? You don't ignore all of the questions that are being raised about the uses of AI and the implications. You address them head on, and you do that in one class. And just look at the range of AI challenges that we know today are out there. Ethics and privacy, misinformation, media and politics. I know something that Adam, you and your team are very concerned about. What about the future of work? Is AI augmenting or replacing jobs? We just talked about sustainability. But hey, autonomous robots and driving are coming. How should we think about that? How should we regulate those things? Are they a good idea or not? And of course, in the context of the Ukraine war, we're thinking a lot about the future of warfare. And then what about geopolitical competition? Is AI, in fact, a race between China and the US, or should we think about a global solution to AI? that's a wide range of topics. Every one of them feels really important to me, and I think we've got an obligation to make students aware and to allow them to engage in discussions on all of those topics. Can we create a university-wide class on responsible AI? Right-hand side, human leadership in an AI age. This might sound like a bit of a cliche, but it feels real to many of us in two buckets. The first one is the kind of individual level skills that everyone says are really, really important: curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, being compassionate, all of that stuff. In higher education, we've long asserted that those things are really, really important. We've probably been less clear on how we develop those skills, how we assess them, but we're going to have to do it in an AI world because knowledge transfer is going to become much faster and much more efficient. We're going to have more time to devote to skills development, and the first bucket there would be individual level skills. The second bucket is group skills: collaborate, communicate, be compassionate. That's the kind of leadership suite that business schools have always had. I think the opportunity for us in higher education is to scale that up to all students. All of our students we want and expect to become leaders. Their jobs are going to be much less narrowly technical going forward than they've been in the past. How can we help them develop their leadership skills? So that's human skills, and I hope to finish by 11:30 West Coast time. I think I'm going to make that because I've only got one slide left, which is about real-world learning. And for people who are familiar with this world, there's one university in the US that's really famous for integrating work experience into the undergraduate curriculum. That's the so-called co-op model at Northeastern University in Boston. Co-ops are academic year internships. You get credit for them. You engage with real organizations, not just in the private sector, but in the not-for-profit sector, and you work on problems. And in addition to getting credit during the academic year, as opposed to not-for-credit summer internships, our current kind of model, the other thing that potentially we could do with AI internships is to do a pre and a post, prepare students for an immersive experiential learning opportunity, prepare them for it, and debrief them afterwards. What did you learn? What did you learn about yourself? What team skills did you learn? What now do you now know more about the industry? AI just seems a case where more real-world learning is more important than anywhere else, because the only way we can keep up with what's going on in the private sector is to have students closer to it. And academic year internships, co-op model, whatever you want to call it, project-based learning, that seems essential. So I'm going to stop speaking there. I don't know whether I've said a bunch of boring things or provocative things, but we'll find out through the discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see everyone's faces on their Zoom tiles. And I'd love to get people's reactions either to things that I said or that I didn't say, or anything in between.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And we are getting questions. I won't ask them in order. I'll try to put them in some uh, uh, reasonable set of topics. One is, how will, with artificial intelligence, how will USC and how should universities be monitoring the learning of students?
Yeah, so really big topic, Adam, and no surprise it's the first question. I think we do have to take the AI makes your brain lazy critique really, really seriously. And we've got to do a lot to ensure that that doesn't happen. Part of that will be about how we assess students. And so let me react in two ways. First one is, I'm really sympathetic to the idea that this will be back to the future. and that we either need assessment using blue books and number two pencils, or we need oral exams, or we need group projects that are assessed, something like that. I'm really sympathetic to that view because in the dark ages, my first academic job was as a tutorial fellow at Oxford University. And as I like to say to myself, there was nowhere for the students to hide in a classics Oxbridge tutorial, right? If they didn't understand their essay, it was immediately apparent. So I love that idea. The problem with the Oxbridge tutorial is it's not very scalable. So the challenge for us is how can we do assessment that's authentic in a world where we'd be scaling to hundreds, thousands of students? I'm not sure of the answer to that, but I think and of course there are a whole bunch of AI tools. I get pitched a lot of startups these days, and people are pitching me, "Hey, AI can do that for you. We can have an AI agent that would run a group project that would assess individuals, that would ask questions about exams." I don't want to go there yet. That might feel a little dystopian, but certainly for the academics in the room, right, grading, I think there's one thing that we all agree on. No one likes grading. If we could figure out in an AI age a better way to do grading, maybe that would be better. But so that's my first reaction. Second reaction is there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all answer to this. And so in our committee, we decided ultimately not to go with a strong recommendation on what AI, in the jargon, what an AI policy to ensure academic integrity should be. If you look at what's happening at USC, and I suspect around the country and around the world right now, we have a spectrum of responses by professors that probably also vary by discipline. At one end of the spectrum, you've got the all-in. Hey, AI is here. It's the future. We want you to use all the tools. We want you to use all the tools in your assessment, in every assignment you do. That's just going to be better. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got my classroom is an AI-free zone. No AI here. We're going to do everything the old-fashioned way. It's the equivalent of the meetings we've all been in where we're supposed to put our cell phones in a basket so that we don't look at our phones in the meeting, AI-free zone. And then there's a whole bunch in the middle, which is some AI use, some non. I suspect that that's the only pragmatic outcome. Faculty are still going to own curriculum. They're still going to own how they do assessment. And I think it would be a fool's errand to try to dictate a one-size-fits-all response. Having said that, we probably need to have some guardrails and guideposts regarding different kinds of practices that professors might use. In the Marshall School at the moment, we have those three buckets. We have some people who are all in, some people who are AI free, and some people who are in the middle a little bit. I suspect we'll continue with something like that. It's probably going to be frustrating to people, but I think it's the pragmatic reality. Intellectually, there probably isn't one answer to this question. And practically, I don't think we could impose a mode of assessment on faculty. I just don't think that's going to work. So I'll stop speaking there.
A question asking you to expand a bit on your last slide about your last two slides. What capabilities should be prioritized in this AI environment, and is AI making ever more important the role of teaching lifelong learning?
Lifelong learning. Let's bracket that for a second. The way I think about this, and excuse me if it sounds a little bit crass, I'm a plain speaking Australian. I think a lot of higher education has been, no matter how much we talk about things like creativity, curiosity, critical thinking, agility, resilience, all of the skills buckets that people talk about these days, What we've actually been doing mostly is knowledge transfer. It's been a lot of stand and deliver by experts behind podiums. That's important, but in an AI age, we're going to be just much more efficient at doing knowledge transfer. Um, we could talk about lots of examples of that. I think we all know that knowledge is at our fingertips more than ever before today. If that's the case, we're actually going to have more space in the curriculum to develop skills, to develop the human skills that are on those slides, Adam. And I think that's an opportunity, but it's also going to be a challenge. If our base case model of higher ed is knowledge transfer, and now we're going to be thinking much more about learning and less about teaching, that's going to be a big challenge. And I think we've got to own it. But to get to your lifelong learning point, we know that whatever we teach students in the next year, 2 years, no matter how close we want to get to the frontier, it's all going to be out of date in 3 years or 5 years. So we have to think about positioning people not only for their first jobs in higher ed, but how they're going to develop as humans and how their careers are going to evolve over their lifetimes. So 2 responses to that. First one is that things like agility, resilience are going to become more valuable. They're going to become more valuable because we can't predict the future. We don't know where people's lives are going to go, but we want to prepare them for that radical uncertainty. Second, universities like USC, but all universities have long promised to our alumni, we have a lifelong relationship with you. But it's actually been really hard for us to deliver on the notion of lifelong learning. Maybe AI ultimately will give us that opportunity. So imagine a world in which you have access to the corpus of knowledge that's been produced by your alma mater, and you also have an AI assistant that can help you navigate all of that stuff. You can find the greatest lecture from 1975. You can synthesize 10 macroeconomics classes you took. Maybe AI is going to give us the opportunity finally to deliver in a real way on lifelong learning for all of our alumni. And to my mind, that'd be a fantastic thing.
We're getting questions faster than you'll be able to answer them. I think what we'll do is we'll save all of these questions and share them with you just to give you an idea of what concerns people, at least in this hour. 2 related questions. One is, what should be the role of students as you consider university-wide AI issues? And second is, what should be the role of faculties? And this is from someone who says that because faculties sometimes are most difficult to bring along. I can think of a few members of the USC community who might have asked that, but so students and faculty.
Faculty, yes. The biggest challenge for us, which is going to be the biggest challenge in the world, is what business people call change management, which is getting people to stop doing what they've always done and to do something differently when they don't have big incentives to do so. My feeling is the only viable path is a hearts and minds campaign. It's not command and control. So with respect to the kinds of recommendations that we've been making at USC, it's to create opportunities. It's not to mandate anything. I think the mandating, changing degree requirements, a whole bunch of things like that are just a bridge too far. They're a fool's errand, precisely because the curriculum process at USC and at all universities is fundamentally a bottom-up process. And the only way you can get change is for change to start at the level of the people who are thinking about, do I want to create a new class? Do I want to revise the class that I've been teaching for X years? That's a hearts and minds campaign undertaking. With respect to students, I don't know what the question I was thinking, but one thing I hear from students a lot is, please don't tell me how to use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. I'm so much better at that than any professor could ever be. I'm sure that's right. So what I think we've got to do is create. We already know that today's students are digital natives. They're also going to be AI natives, and they're going to know more about AI than most of us with less hair or grayer hair than we used to have. And that's going to be, we've got to acknowledge that. That doesn't make students all knowing. They're not, but we'll have to incorporate into the way we teach the fact that the students are going to be better on the technical side than we can be. I don't think that reduces our value. I think it just changes our value.
We're more than halfway through this hour, and people keep joining. I should point out that the entire hour is being recorded. The video will be on our website. So for the majority of those who are now on the call, you should know that you can see the entire hour on our website, and we'll publish the URL of that shortly. Related to that last point about students, there was a study of KPMG, one of the largest auditing firms in the world, over 8 months, looking at hundreds of thousands of transcripts of human interactions with AI. And one finding, which was somewhat surprising, and it relates to what you were just saying about students, is that the most sophisticated and perhaps most effective users of AI were actually older members of the firm. And they think there's an association between not age, but between being able to supervise humans and being able to interact with AI, because you know better how to ask the question and maybe give guidance on how it should be done. Intriguing results, to say the least.
Yeah, so I don't know that study, Adam, but it does give me an opportunity to say something which is directionally where the study was going, but I'm going to add a wrinkle to it. And the directional is that management is going to matter more, no question. And that's back to the entry-level jobs versus managerial jobs. The value of the managerial ones is going to go up. However, there's already some work, and by God, this is recent because the phenomenon is recent, about agentic AI, using AI as agents. And we know in general that the AI response is only as good as the prompt engineering. That's the way we thought about that in 2025. In the age of agentic AI, we know that managers, imagine now you're not a manager of 5 people, you're a manager of 5 AI agents. What's the difference between those two managerial environments? What I know about myself as a human manager is I tend to be, I think, imprecise in the tasks, and I'd never even use that language. Somebody who works for me, I'd say they come to me and they have a good idea. I say, why don't you go away and work on that, and then we'll talk about it again the next time we meet in a one-on-one meeting. Why do I do that? Maybe I don't want to be a micromanager. Maybe I hope and expect that somebody who works for me will grow if they're less precisely managed. That's not going to work in an AI age. This is where the AI slop comes in. The early results show that if you give imprecise tasks to an AI agent, you get bad work back. So I suspect that the managerial challenge is going to become harder. We're going to have to think more about what are the questions that the machine that works for me will have to know. I'll have to anticipate all that stuff up front. I can't do it in a dialectical way, the way I would have done it with my direct reports in a human managerial world. I'm going to have to think all that through in advance. So AI agents could produce a lot of slop. That's going to depend on the humans who are managing them.
And an opportunity for education of humans. Uh,
Indeed.
the interesting question, and something which we've all thought about, which is uh, developing countries. Is this going to increase or to widen the gap between developed and undeveloped economies, or will they be able to leapfrog and use AI to stay current?
Um, Obviously, an incredibly important topic. Uh, let me react in a couple of ways. I'm not sure either will be satisfactory. The first one, I'll de-identify this, but I was talking to a senior executive of a large professional services firm with a large headcount of employees in India. And this person just said to me, the way I can summarize our firm's strategy is it's either AI or it's India. If we're gonna have employees in a higher uh, cost of labor environment like the United States, we're going to use AI more. If we're in India, where the quality of labor per dollar is much higher, like India, we're going to use India more. Is there ultimately some kind of trade-off there? No doubt. Second thought in this vein is the Philippines and call centers. The people I know in the Philippines has the largest call center employment base in the world, I think. Close enough to Western time zones, lots of English speakers, etc. We know the reasons. People are worried that AI is existential for call centers, and I expect that to be the case because the AI can give not only better answers and work 24 hours a day, but it can also learn and log every call in real time that it received. So that's going to be a big challenge for the Philippines. What happens to people who used to work in call centers? Second reaction about the rest of the world is back to the notion of an AI race between China and the US. If you look today at every indicator of AI there is, it's China and the US, with Europe very far behind, and then everybody else even further behind. Who's going to adopt the US AI stack versus the Chinese stack remains to be seen. But it looks like this is a sort of duopoly kind of environment at the moment. What does that mean if you're in a developing country? This was just timing. I was in Delhi when Prime Minister Modi in India held his big global AI summit. I can't remember when it was, November or December. No, maybe it was January or February this year. I'm sorry, I travel too much. I can't remember when. But Modi had a big summit. And he really pitched it as, hey, I'm going to be the leader of the global South when it comes to AI. India is going to have its own data centers. India will have its own large language models, and we can do that for the global South. I thought that was a very intriguing idea, but the data today would just say that the combination of computing power and AI talent at the individual level and corporate is so far ahead in the US and China from the rest of the world. It's looking like a duopoly to me. So that doesn't answer the question on net. Is AI better or worse for inequality around the world? I don't know I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know whether anyone knows the answer to that question, but it goes back to the balance between, and this in the world of work, this feels the core tension, not only within countries, but between countries. We know that there are going to be all of these productivity enhancements, productivity increases that are going to come from AI. what does that mean for the kind of work that people do? That's a really big question. We don't know it. I don't think we know the answer to it within even a country like the United States today, let alone globally. But it's a big question. And for the economists on the call, we all know the economists' truism, which is when you're in the middle of a technological revolution, it's going to destroy, we all think it's going to destroy jobs, but then we get out the other side and we've created more jobs, right? That has been true of every technological revolution that we've had. I think we've got to be honest and say AI might be different. We don't know yet whether it will be different, but it could be different.
Question about the USC in particular. Do you have some thoughts about what could be a first university-wide AI project? Something that would embrace all 19, I think it's 19 schools plus the college.
So I think we're up to 23 schools now. So USC is a very big place. It's a very big place. It's very decentralized. So university-wide, let me put some boundaries around university-wide based on the work of our committee. So we're defining university-wide as initiatives that could reach all USC undergraduates. And I believe it's only 13 schools have undergraduate degrees. So that'd be the universe. What is true is that USC does not have a structure to create classes that would be available to students in 13 schools. The way USC is built is from the ground up. Departments feed into schools, which then become the university. So I'm actually in a very active conversation with both with deans and with senior administrators at the university with respect to what's a practical way to get around this. If we wanted to, I'll use my favorite example. I'd love it if we could put together a super cool responsible AI class that would talk about everything from privacy and misinformation to the impact of AI on warfare. I'd love to put that class up. I'd love to have it up for fall 2026, and I'd want to make it available to every undergraduate student at USC. We currently have no structure to do that. So let's see if the necessity can be the mother of invention here, and we can figure out a way to do it. But it feels important to me to have balance. I said that for me, the watchword of everything is both and. AI isn't going to make schools and disciplines and domains irrelevant. It's going to make them more relevant in a different way. But at the same time, there are probably some things that we'd like to make available to all of our students. And the two that we're focused on right now are what's an AI class? The language we're using is how do algorithms think? How could we make a how do algorithms think class available to all USC students? How many levels of technical entry barrier would we need for that to work? And then the second one is a breadth one. If we had a responsible AI class that went all the way from privacy to AI warfare, how could we mount that and how could we make it available to students? And do it really, really quickly, right? And do it not on the normal university timeline where gestation for a new class takes 18 months to 2 years. If we want to do it in 3 or 4 months, can we actually deliver on that? Let's see.
And it would have to be revised quickly, frequently.
But hey, but Adam, we have to live in a world. We think classes are set in stone forever. Come on, we're not going to live in that world.
What are your thoughts about implications of your work for K through 12 education?
K-12 is facing exactly the same kind of challenges that we are. I suspect that resistance to change will be just as high there as in universities. So it's got to be, I doubt that can be mandated. I think teachers will have to want to embrace change. I hope we can help them. Universities like USC have already been reaching back into the high school system, both to do good things for the world and also to create pipelines for students into a USC education. I think we should do more of that. So I talked a little bit about lifelong learning for our alums. Let's make it lifelong in the other direction. Let's reach back into high school and use the AI moment as an opportunity to reduce the distance in terms of what students study in high school and what they're going to have to do in college. So it feels both hard, but a real opportunity for us.
This is probably going to be the last question from a Marshall parent of a student in the Marshall School at USC, who came to campus and discovered that, having read about it, but discovered experiencing it, that she believes students are, because of social media, are less connected with each other than used to be the case. And is there a way that, do you agree? And B, do you think that AI represents an opportunity to develop a way to actually, as she puts it, to make us all better humans?
I certainly think the opportunity for us all is to become better humans. And I think the value on that, both socially and economically, will be great. The mental health challenges, loneliness, etc., among college-age students is clearly real. Social media played an important role. COVID played an important role. AI potentially could be either make things worse or make things better. The obvious thing to say on AI is that there's already a lot of work on the topic of both the attractiveness and the consequence of your AI befriending you or you befriending it. So I'll give you one positive example and then one negative example. The positive example for me is that it seems clear that students are more willing to ask AI questions than they are to interrupt their professors. So if we just think about learning, having a chatbot sitting alongside a professor is probably going to be good for learning. But I'm certainly worried about companies that are in the business of trying to make AI sufficiently attractive that young people fall in love with their AI agents. That feels like a dystopian world to me, not a utopian one. So like everything else, I don't think there's one answer to this question.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes, and here's somebody with a short question. Coming out of the COVID pandemic, one thing that happened is that everybody seems to have learned how to use Zoom as we are today. What do you nominate as a technology or other kind of innovation that will be common coming out of the introduction of AI tools?
So what's the equivalent of Zoom? I don't know. But I think there's a profound difference between COVID and AI if both are really big shocks to the world. In COVID, we had no choice. There wasn't debate. I remember I was a dean, not at USC. In 3 days, I had to move an offline university to create an online university. We had no choice. In AI, we've got a choice. And so in terms of the change management, that's why I think that the Hearts and Minds campaign, more conversations, more honesty about the downsides as well as the upsides of AI is the only way we're going to get change. It's not going to be Claude 4.6 makes everybody on this call a convert to AI. That's not going to happen. What I hope might happen is that people will be curious about figuring out what is the plus of Claude 4.6. How can I integrate it into my own life, into the classes I teach? That feels like the way forward to me.
Well, thank you, Jeff Garrett. We're at the end of our time together, this time at least, and hope we can come back and talk about this a bit more as the field progresses and as USC progresses and as universities and the education effort across the board progresses. Once again, a reminder, our next AI forum will be on Tuesday, May 13th at the same time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and it will be on coexisting with AI and AI enablement. And we'll have details and the RSVP link, which we can provide online. So thank you again, Jeff. It's been a fascinating hour, and we look forward to more. So